and welcome back to the Proving Grounds Pod, your one-stop shop for all things Proving Grounds. My name is Smax, and I'm joined by my constant co-host, Cubby. And today, we have a very special guest with us. We have Tim Sevenhuysen, otherwise known as Magic, otherwise known as the biggest brain in esports in general, and otherwise known as father to everyone, including his own kids. So rattling off more titles. Do you want some more, or do you want to say?
I think we could plug like Oracle's Elixir in there. Might be a good one. Yeah, we can plug that before and after. But
not really sure how to respond to all of that.
Yeah.
Well, hello. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for the welcome. Thanks for all of whatever that was. But I'm happy to be here regardless.
Well, that's good news. I'm glad I didn't scare you in the first second. Yeah, today we're here with episode 18 of our podcast, and we're going to take this time to not talk to someone who's playing in the tournament, but as someone who has been watching about as much as Cubby and I combined, really. As crazy as that is, Tim, you've kept yourself very, very enthralled with all of the Proving Ground stuff for this split. How has this year been for you?
Yeah, it's been pretty intense trying to keep up with all the games and the whole Academy amateur ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah.
Just the volume of competition that's been happening, especially at the amateur level, has been a little overwhelming at times. But I made an intentional choice coming in once that format was announced. Like, hey, I'm going to drop some of the other kind of top tier pro stuff that I sometimes pay attention to, and I'm going to focus on this because I want to invest into it. I think it's worthwhile and I think it's important. And so just keeping up with the entire kind of NA vertical, following LCS, doing content on that, following Academy and Amateur, it's been a lot of fun. And I think you can see some really cool things and tell some cool stories when you cover all three levels of that. And I think following the entire year through for all of it has been enjoyable so far, and I've been able to keep up with it reasonably well.
That's good. It's been a lot of games. Like when I was doing prep for like Norg Barrage, it was like, whoa, Norg between them and like being under a new have played 70 games, and I was like, Barrage have played even more because they didn't qualify. Like I think they're up to 90 now. I mean, that's a lot. It's been a lot of games and pretty crazy to get here, but that's been one of the fun parts about at least like the new format is that more people hopped in and followed along, and so it was good to have a lot more people hop in and follow along because we still feel like it's worth investing in. So glad others feel the same way as the format changed here this year.
Sure. What do you think has been like the biggest reason for you and others in the scene to take such a I don't know if leadership role is the right word, but I think you know what I'm getting at, where like you've been involved in the esports scene for a while. People definitely know who you are, and now coming into this scene, getting more eyes on it, and well, you as well as Kelsey, Raz, some others as well, like the LCS staff are all being pretty enthralled with this too. What do you think has been like the biggest step to that has been taken this year to make that change?
Yeah, I think I can mostly speak for my own part. I can't speak so much for the others. I mean, I know Kelsey works in that space, having worked in Academy and working with amateur player development is something she's passionate about. I think Raz as well, having worked as an Academy coach, and he just, has some presence in that space already. For my own part, though, it was really a matter of, making an intentional choice that, hey, I think North American talent development is something that is really important for the health of kind of the LCS ecosystem. And I've been kind of following and doing coverage of LCS for several years now, developed some level of following from that. And I think there's just by default a higher level of kind of fan base, a larger group of people who watch LCS than watching, Academy or amateur level. And you get a little bit of a trickle down of audience from that. But I think it was very much an intentional choice on my part, going all the way back to last year. And I started doing Academy coverage, consistently every week. And it was something where I said, hey, I've got some LCS following and some audience here, and I'm going to try to transfer some portion of that, as I put my attention into this and say, look, let's celebrate these players. Let's tell these storylines of the players trying to get into the LCS. And if the fan attention is on that, I like to think that it contributes a little bit into incentivizing the organizations to do a better job of telling the stories of their Academy players, and now at the amateur level as well. and just trying to be part of like not making them do all the lifting for themselves, because if you're an org doing it, you're always going to have some bias of trying to tell your own team's story. You can't like tell the overarching thing of the league necessarily. So yeah, it really was just me wanting to personally invest in that and wanting to kind of put my money where my mouth is and say, not just sit there and say, hey, Academy actually is really important and we should pay attention to it, but like, no, look here, I'll give you a way to pay attention to it. I'll give you an access into it. I know a lot of people, fans don't have the time to watch all these games, but if they could at least, read something once a week, listen to something once a week that gives a high level overview, or hear the players that are worth paying the most attention to, stuff like that. It's just a way for me to kind of, like I said, put my money where my mouth is on that. It's something that I've said I valued, and this is me showing the amount that I value it.
For sure. Has this year surprised you in just how much talent there has been to highlight?
Yeah, I think I could say it's been a positive surprise that I probably would not have predicted coming into the year that there'd be as many amateur teams beating academy teams.
Yeah.
That there've been as many players in the amateur ecosystem outperforming, a certain portion of the academy players. I think we can still say pretty confidently that the academy teams as a whole, the 10 academy teams are stronger on average than the top 10 amateur teams, but the overlap between them is a lot closer than I would have thought coming in. I didn't know a lot of the stories about a lot of these amateur players before starting this year, and now getting to watch them and see like there are a lot of players here I'm really interested in. And that's been a lot of fun to see. A lot of those players, are people who have had FaceTime in the LCS, like watching Viper and Anda. Some of these guys, there's a different, there's a different kind of facet of tracking those guys than there is tracking, Shiro or Five Fires a little bit in the middle there, had a little bit of a cup of coffee at the academy level. But, just the straight up only ever been in amateur players, there's a lot more talent in that group than I think I would have expected coming in. And I think we're, we still need to have a lot of runway for those players to get up to the academy level and try to earn their way into the LCS, but there's less runway to go than I would have thought coming into the year.
Yeah. I think we've all been really, really pleasantly surprised with the level of a lot of these like individual players, and really the team dynamics too, because the different team play styles has been really shocking. I think the chiefest example of that is definitely Zoos, where they have a very defined style, and while they don't have like super big standouts individually, they have gotten this far just off of like team skill alone. And I well, not alone, but you know what I'm saying. They've done a phenomenal job of that, and I think that landscape of it is one of the most interesting things to me, is the fact that they had to be a good team to get this far and make it to Proving Grounds and beat TSM. And there are other examples of that too, like Barrage beating Team Liquid with their team skill as well. So it's been really interesting stuff, not just on the individual level for me. And I think that's really cool. I don't know if they were intending on making that the direction of it. I mean, they did remove the scouting grounds like main event where you could qualify off of solo queue, so it must have been on their minds at least a little bit. But I think that aspect of it has been very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting elements to talk about in the fact that the amateur teams aren't just competing with Academy on actual player skill, but on team play and team preparedness. Like I think Wildcard is a team that absolutely deserves being called out for, like, they don't match up pound for pound in player skill. And that's no slight on the players involved, but the teams they're coming up against and have been beating all year long, in a lot of these series, they're beating them despite being at a player skill deficit a lot of the time. And I think that goes to show that there's not only talent in the players that you could, pick out some of these guys and promote them into academy and improve on what you have right now, but there's also stronger preparation from analysts, from coaches that are putting these teams together and finding ways, to win with the player tools that they have. So I think it should be a wake up call to the LCS orgs at the academy level, that not only do we need to improve on which players we're choosing to put these teams together if we want to actually have strong, performing academy teams, but I think, we can also find some staff with good potential there that we can bring up as well.
Yeah. I know that EGP is technically like tied to EG as well, but I know that their mid games have been a lot better than a lot of the academy teams I've seen in the tournament, and that's been consistent throughout their entire season. I think wildcards early games are a nice call out as well, for like how they're able to just get leads from playing the first 3 waves correctly and like knowing how to secure the crabs or like where to dive top. Something like it's interesting to see like these are things like I fully expect academy teams like start getting really good at, and kind of like not a master, but like have a very good idea of like how to do it. And it's fun to see the amateur teams actually come in and like beat them like straight up. Like EGP just like they straight up won their series off in mid games. Like that's it's really interesting to see, and hopefully just pushes the level of play up like as a whole when we go into academy next year, and then also amateur, just seeing how many people stick around or how much overlap there is between who hops up and who hops back down. I think there's going to be a lot of changes.
This off season is going to be so fun.
Yeah, this off season is going to be nuts.
It's going to be real good.
Yeah.
Speaking of the transition into the next season, Tim, is this something that you feel has been very like successful, and you've hit the mark personally on what you've wanted to do with your content and being on the UGP broadcast and other things along those lines? Is this something that you feel you've hit the mark on and you want to replicate for the summer and maybe future splits as well?
Yeah, I think, the first few months of this year have been in a lot of different ways me kind of figuring out which pieces of what I'm working on I want to invest more into and pursue a little harder. So, being on broadcast a little bit more is something that, I'm still feeling out whether that's a really good direction for me to pursue a little more heavily and try to be on more broadcasts and like put myself out there more actively. Working more on, written and video content for YouTube, or, so I like the Academy Amateur Standouts thing. Do I want to like invest more into that kind of thing? Do I want to just spend more time developing the Orcus Elixir website? Like, and then like the different consulting or contracting projects that I do for other places. Like I have my hands in a lot of different things right now. And I think I'm kind of waiting to see which ones stick the hardest and which ones feel most fulfilling. I felt pretty good about the balance this spring so far, and I'm definitely not going to drop out of academy or amateur coverage at all. It's just a matter of, do I do more than I'm doing right now and let some other things fall aside? Do I maintain the current level? I think I'm still feeling that out a little bit. But I think the balance has been pretty good so far this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing potential format changes for summer as well. Will change like the amount of time I need. Does the number of games at the amateur level drop a little bit, and I'm able to cut 3 hours of my week out because I don't have to watch quite as many VODs? I don't know. Well, we'll have to see. So it's a lot of read and react.
Yeah, and I know that with at least the public form that Riot put out to apply, there were not as many tier 1 applications. So
yeah,
I don't know if that means that they already have tier 1s.
I'm pretty sure it means they're just continuing with certain partners, but they're letting other ones like. But if another bidder takes over this spot from people who had it in spring, I don't think they're cutting the number of tournaments, but maybe they are also leaving that option open if they don't like the level of applications they get. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I was about to say like, we'll see. So
the broadcast days seem to be shorter. Or not shorter, fewer.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
It will be fewer for each tournament.
Yeah, I wonder how that's gonna like make a play into it. Like I feel like if there are less broadcast days, then tournaments like Risen are significantly less incentivized to have 32 teams. Because it's already super hard to get coverage on all of them there.
There's be a lot more open qualifiers, I think.
Right.
Because
I think tightening up the tournament formats is something I'm sure they want to try to do, which at the tier 2 level, like Risen, I think is something that's really probably going to be pretty important, because there's just no way to watch the entirety of a 32 team bracket, even if it's only single LM. it's too much, right? And a lot of those games end up having no VODs available anyways. But even at the tier 1 level, I think, I understand why they would want to tighten those formats up and not let them play out quite so long. I hope that I think the tournaments that ran with like a full 2 weeks were a lot stronger events and easier to follow and better broadcast product compared to, putting together the last chance qualifier and cramming that entire thing into 1 week felt very rushed to me. So I hope they can find a bit of a middle ground, but I definitely understand the reasoning why they would want to tighten those up.
Yeah. I mean, they had some they had some successes, some duds across the 6 tournaments that they had. So I think they're definitely looking at changes there. But yeah, like you said, we'll definitely be seeing. I'm sure the month of May will hold a lot of that because it seems like a pretty big off-season month for all of this stuff, which is definitely needed. And for that month as well, like we touched on the off-season being a really big deal. How much turnover do you think there actually is going to be in the NA, all 3 leagues at the same time?
Yeah, this is gonna be. I've been trying to throw a percentage on this, what I think's gonna happen, and I think it's gonna be I don't want to say 40%, but I think there's gonna be 30, 40%. Yeah.
Well, amateur is gonna skew it a lot, right? Because amateur usually gets 90%. But if you're involving the LCS teams as well, then it gets a little interesting. And there's only a month this time, as opposed to last year and previous years where it's been full years long.
Yeah, I have less kind of experience watching amateur scene roster shuffles, and of course there will be a lot more volatility there for a lot of different reasons, right?
Yeah,
it goes wild. But at the academy level, it's there's a lot more difficulty shifting things up. Like you can end contracts with these players, but some cases will have multi-year contracts with them. I think you go into it with the mindset more of this is a player we intend to develop the entire year. So I think there's that kind of preventing the same level of turnover at the academy level. But on the other hand, I think the way this spring has gone should be showing a lot of the LCS teams hey, our academy team wasn't built. We didn't give nearly enough effort into picking up players that could be developed into stronger than the safe experienced picks we did. I think there are a bunch of academy teams that could very easily, if they're willing to put the effort in, replace 2 or 3 of their players, bring up people who have performed well in amateur and spring, and and have some pieces they're working towards for the future. That might take a short-term performance hit as they integrate them, but is going to be hey, you don't have to spend 18 months bringing this player up to a level. You might only need 3 months. They're actually a lot better than you think.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that the incentivization on that side will be stronger, or at least strong enough to overcome the challenges of dealing with the contracting situations that they put themselves into. Hey, you might have to end some deals, or you might have to pay for an extra player until that contract expires. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. And I know that, the turnover rate, the 30 to 40%, I'm not trying to include amateur teams with that, Smax, because, as you said, it's going to be just wild. But I think that, I on average, I would not be surprised if Academy swapped out, a player and a half, per team.
Each team?
On average per team, yeah.
Yeah, on average per team. I would not be surprised if a player and a half. Because I think of, you have, the usual swaps going on between, LCS and Academy. Some players are ready to go up. Some teams might switch some things up, right? That just might happen. But then you throw in the fact that, we've gotten so much footage of these players in amateur that, a lot of the people on the list of Mobalytics that Tim has is, a lot of those players, it's if we plug and play these guys into Academy, it's they're going to be okay. They can do just fine, and maybe with a little bit more time for development for them, that's when they start to hit higher ceilings. And I think that there's going to be a couple teams that see that. And I know that mid-season contracts, especially with all the imports coming over, it's going to be really difficult because I think that moving those players around might be a little bit harder just because they signed fresh contracts, right? But I think that when you look at some of the players in Academy or amateur, like Shiro, Shiro could easily go up to the next level.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's no reason for EG to let that guy go.
Oh God, no. But still,
that's where that's where these conversations do get a little more. I think to me a little more interesting is you start to talk about specific teams and specific players. If you just look at the 2 academy teams that have gone out so far, so CLG and TL, I think CLG are the more likely to make some changes, or should be more likely to make some changes. I don't know if they will, but so you have Oceanic players in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to bring them to a new continent and then send them home halfway through the year? They might feel some obligation to not do that, even though I think competitively it might be a better call. So I think that might be a bit of a tough call, emotionally, which to whatever extent that matters. And I think it does. It's not a zero amount that it matters. TLA, what do they change there? They believe in Jenkins. They've just seen Armeo, play in the semis and the finals in LCS, and I'm curious how they're going to feel about that.
What a 6-man performance from Armeo. I mean, I know that
was nuts.
Yeah, we aren't like always the highest on him, but I mean, he stepped up really huge in those series, and he made some mistakes, but he filled in really well. Yeah.
Well, and I think like the org has publicly put out a lot of like, even if the org felt like, hey, we brought Armeo up and we almost won, but he individually wasn't, like, even if they didn't feel good about his individual performance, could they possibly in any world cut him after that? No, of course not. I don't care how bad he threw. He filled in a big thing for you and generated a lot of goodwill from the community. And imagine the backlash if they replaced him. So regardless of any other circumstance, right? Harry, Oceanic player, Ayla, there's no way you're letting him go. Jan is like arguably the
piece,
the real prospect on the roster.
Yeah.
So TLA have nowhere that I think they reasonably would make a change unless they're willing to like cut Harry but I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there's any real reason to. So when you start to look at the individual circumstances, I think it's a little harder to see where the changes could happen in Academy. It's more, I think there's more to me on a lot of interest on which LCS orgs might want to promote a player into Academy out of amateur in order to hold on to their contract, right? Because you can't hold an amateur contract past the end of this year.
Yep.
It gets really fascinating there.
That was the 100 Thieves next issue.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Well,
the Kenby Tenacity scenario.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Evil Genius's Prodigies are going to have a very similar thing. Like, EG in the next month and a half could look very different, and it might just all be positive for development, right? Because the Academy team is looking phenomenal.
That's the scary part for EG is that, like, the Prodigies team, they're all 17 and 18. They're beating Academy teams already. But then you look at their Academy team, and it's like, well, arguably we've been the strongest team in the tournament so far. Like, I guess we just have a monopoly on talent at the moment. So then buyouts
and
become
they placed 10th.
Something.
They've done all this improvement in like a month. They placed 10th in the Academy regular split, and then they haven't lost a game yet in Proving Grounds, which is nuts. And they went all the way through the winner's side of the bracket to the finals, and won the best of 3, lost the best of 5 to GGA, and that team just looks phenomenal. So I think Evil Geniuses are going to have the good type of problem in this off season, which is really cool. So I think that's going to be really cool. Like, especially their 80 carry pool, man.
Something on the logistical side that I'm really unsure about, and I think it should affect their decision making, is what happens if you promote an amateur player. Let's say you promote Shiro into to become an Academy player, even if you don't play him. Like, the one option is you don't play him, you let Shiro keep playing, but now at least you can get him an Academy contract and hold on for next year.
Yeah.
But what happens if you promote Shiro and send Shoryu down? Does that mean Shoryu has to be on an amateur contract and his contract has to expire? I'm not actually sure how that works. Can you have a player on an Academy contract but demote them and have them play an amateur and still hold on to their? You can't, right? Like,
that's a riot.
That would be gaming the system so hard, right? So that's when I might have to go to ask some people about that, because I don't know.
That's a really good question. I haven't thought about that yet. Because
I'm sure there's some kind of loopholes that Riot's going to have to figure out, because the orgs are going to. I mean, this is really important to them. It's a really big resource. Some of these players that they want to hold on to, and they don't want to just completely gut their amateur team and just in order to hold on to some players. Well, especially, so I don't know what's going to happen
with buyouts being such a big inject of cash.
Business resource too.
Yeah, a business resource for these teams that have like an overstock on talent. Like, if you're EG, like, you want to keep all those players on contract essentially in case you get buyouts, because you will get buyout offers for like pretty much that entire EGP roster or EGP.
If you're 100
roster.
Thieves and someday gets a green card and you decide to stick with them and you can make $500,000 off Tenacity, that's a great investment you've made, right? Or some other direction with it. But just having those players, those high value players in Academy, can be worth a lot in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Speaking of 100 Thieves, they had a similar thing last season where they had Tenacity as just a sixth man on their Academy roster. He didn't play, but he was there. So it very well could be a very similar thing with the marksman pool for EG. Just another aside thing about EG, because I think it's funny. I'm pretty sure that there are 3 marksman players within that org that are better than Deftly. I think it is.
Three?
I think Shoryu, Shiro, and JoJo are all
Oh,
marksman
that's
players.
Smax.
That's just the funny thing that I was.
Have you
thinking
seen
of
his
the other day,
Heimerdinger though?
but- I have. That's true. But yeah, JoJo's Lucian is pretty fun. So
This is true.
anyway, yeah, I think the development part of this off season is gonna be really good because the turnover can go up, it can go down. But we'll have to find out because EG's not even their LCS team isn't even like really missing the mark too bad. I'd say like obviously they want to be in the finals and everything. But,
Yeah.
I don't think contracts over Svenskeren fixes anything.
Yeah, but contracts over the other junglers though, Cubby. That's where it gets a little interesting.
Contracts is, and it, like if we like start to talk about like the tournament at hand that we have, if you've watched all the games for the first 2 weeks, the player that sticks out to you the most unquestionably has to be contracts, and that's for me that's the only right answer. I mean that guy has just been a highlight reel on Italy throughout this entire tournament. They're sitting at 4-0, really off the back of his play. He's just been going berserk on the Rift. It's crazy.
Yeah, like the only semi-negative thing you can say about him is, but he's only playing Italy every game. But like, so what? Like, nobody's banning him against what he's supposed to not play it.
Yeah, it's absurd. Like he had a single game where you could have made a montage out of like the Italy plays he had in that single game. Like it's just he's too good at the champion apparently, and it's in a meta right now where like with how EGA like to play, you can punish Hecarim in the first 5 levels. Like we've seen Noorg, Anda has still yet to play Hecarim. Like we've seen Noorg give away Hecarim and pick like Elise Talia into it for the entire season, just blow it up in the early game. Contract's doing just that with Nidalee, right? So it's been really fun to see. And I have a feeling that he's not going to get his hands on that champion much longer.
He shouldn't.
Yeah, no, he shouldn't. He's too good.
The question then becomes how likely then, with contracts looking this good, how likely is it for EGA to just become tournament favorites off of that? Like how big a stock do you take in just that performance on the one champ? Do they win it all when he's
the conversation comes down to EGA and C9A right now. And it's a really interesting conversation because C9A, I think, haven't been tested at the level that I feel I can get a fully good read on them yet. Like the series against Dig Mirage was like C9A just kind of like rolled up to that and like, oh, let's have some fun and win. And then they did. Zeus obviously took a game off them. So that was a lot of a closer challenge and more of a real series.
Almost came back in that game 3 too. It was really off of Zeus misplay. They got punished as well. Yeah,
but I still felt like I didn't get the clearest read on C9A. Like what are they actually as a team? Because I don't know, Zeus has this way of it's a little hard to define how they manage to take some of these games. To me, I mean, the strong play from Dark Wings to me was the main thing on their side that stood out. But like, I still don't feel like I've seen peak C9A, and I feel like if they roll up against EG Academy and prep a little differently or a little bit more. Like I kind of feel like they need to take their prep a little more seriously coming into one of these series and show their absolute best form before I can confidently say how good they are. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing them play this week and see if they can if their prep comes a little more clean. But I think this is basically the 2 favorites of the tournament right now that are going to be playing each other. And which one between them, I don't know. Like it's hard to argue against the trajectory that the EG org has been on, and the Academy team specifically. So I think I would lean to them being favored at the moment, but I'm not ready to like write C9A off.
Yeah,
it's crazy too because if this was last year, they wouldn't have even been in playoffs because they would have been 10th. They wouldn't have even made it. So I just
there was also a month and a half where they like went in the hyperbolic Peter Dunn time chamber and came out on the other side. So
it's just so cool. I've absolutely loved seeing the trajectory on both of their teams in this tournament too.
So awesome. I am actually like in a similar pool as Tim. However, I think that EGA were only tested in the first round. I don't know what happened in the second round with 100 Thieves, but they played really rough. Like game 2, Demonte just like didn't know how to play the Renekton lane, and then just got chain ganked. It was like 0-5.
Yeah.
And then game 2, like there was a really awkward skirmish that happened, and then Contracts just like ran away with the game from there. And Kenby like got punished. I think that they were tested though. I think FlyQuest is still a good team in round 1, and I'm still confident in EG's early games where I think that they're favored in this matchup. And the matchup that I actually want to see is between them and who I think right now is the second tournament favorite in Noorg. And they both love to play early games and are both really, really good at early game. And I want to see that matchup in the next round. I think that'd be stylistically really, really, really fun to watch. I think Anda versus Contracts be a great storyline. Like, this has a lot of hype things behind it, and I think both teams are playing really well right now. I mean, Viper on his Renekton against Barrage was on like the carries every fight. It was stupid. Like, he is so playing out of his mind. I think he's one of the best players in this tournament. In that top side. So I think that would be a really, really fun matchup to get, and one that I'm hoping for. And I think the winner of that, obviously, huge advantage not having to go through the losers bracket, because you have to play a lot of extra matches if you drop down there.
Yeah, I think seeing a team go up against Noorg that knows how to play against a top side focused comp is exciting, and I think EGA is that team. I think that's one of the reasons that they were able to beat 100 Thieves so convincingly. Is, I mean, they went at the top side. Not that they were going against a top side focused team so much, but that they were able to successfully go at the top side of the map, and give Tony Top those kinds of picks and work through him. And so I think Viper is a stronger top side than Tenacity. But between Anda and Kenby, I think it's pretty close. But I think the fact that EGA were able to win the top side of the map and make it about that rather than being about Luger, who is just an incredible player, but the series wasn't really about him, and he had no way to make it about him. EGA didn't allow it to become that. I think that's going to be a big story in that kind of matchup. Yeah. And for 100 Thieves, I think they can look a lot better against a team that isn't able to pull the entire deciding factor of the game away from Luger.
I think that I've really liked how EGA has been using their red side drafts, and I think that red side going into Noorg's blue side could actually be a really fun matchup as well, because no one's really figured out Noorg's blue side still. Barrage was the only team that did. They were 4-5 against Noorg when they were going up like into Noorg's blue side going into that matchup, and now they're 4-7 after they just got 2-0'd. And Noorg, like, to be fair, Noorg could have dropped that game 1, but also like they were kind of playing to their comp and ended up coming back in nice fashion. So
Noorg could drop any game.
No matter what. Noorg can definitely drop games. Like their transition from early game to mid games are it's not good. It can get punished, and I think that's like the real X factor for EG is the fact that they can do that, and also they can play through Shoryu. I haven't really seen Noorg even try to play through value, and so I think that EG is like the tournament favorite, like at the moment.
I'm really looking forward to watching Noorg against EGP, because Noorg have this thing in the mid game where no matter what game state it is, they can lose, right?
Yes.
No matter how far ahead they are, and they're usually really far ahead, they can lose. And on the other side of it, EGP have this thing like no matter how far behind they are, they can win.
Yep.
Somehow they will. So like, it's kind of the stoppable force against the movable object, and which one's gonna give which storyline comes through stronger. I don't know. I think it's gonna be really fascinating.
I was trying to paint that for like Noorg versus Barrage, and Noorg just ended up like they cleaned up the one mid game that they had, but that was like with the Seraphine mid, so a very different composition than like what they're used to running. But still, I like to see the flexibility from them. Right, they're showing a few more angles for this tournament. I think that's going to be really important as they go up against a team like EG, which they're set to meet now. If they beat EGP, you got to beat the little brother first. So
yeah.
The Seraphine call, it's pretty good too, because on like any other tournament, I would have just instantly assumed, Tristana's going mid, Seraphine spot.
Yep, that's what I thought.
There's no possible way that's the other way, but they're showing that they can put value on Tristana. They don't play through him, but they can. He can click people and jump on them, so it's good to see.
Yeah, value was a little over aggressive in that series. We're on the Tristana. Hopefully, might need a few more games on that.
I think asking 5Fire to play utility is good. I think they can do that.
5Fire is very flexible for what he lacks in like mage play, like basic mage play. Like he can play the Ori, but like it's not his favorite, right? He definitely makes up for across the board, like in his champion pool. It's big.
Yeah,
he can do a lot of different
Twisted
things.
Fate's a pretty big utility pick too, so I don't think like that bit of it is as surprising as value being on Tristana in one of their drafts.
He's not going to get Twisted Fate this tournament.
Nope.
I really don't think he gets TF. Yeah.
But I think the most interesting thing in the losers bracket side, because we talked about the winner side a little bit, the losers bracket has FlyQuest in it, and Copy last episode said that he thinks the FlyQuest are in that like top 4 contender conversation. Like he thinks they're gonna the losers bracket run, and I think he even said that he wants to play them in the finals. I might be misquoting on that.
No, I think you're right.
But
yeah,
he's very, very high on this team. I wanna hear what your read is on them, Tim.
Yeah, I can see why people are high on them, but I'm not personally that sold on them. I think part of it might be because, especially when I'm doing academy and amateur coverage in general, I try to focus on the individual players and hype up. All my coverage really is focused on standout players and top prospects and that kind of mindset, right? And when I look at the FlyQuest Academy team, like NXI is kind of exciting in that way. Did really well at scouting grounds. Got draft picked high, which is just mostly a fun storyline. So he's a player that I get kind of interested in. You've got Dreams, and that whole scenario with him and Diamond is an interesting thing to look at. But the other players there, I just don't really get excited about as like really high ceiling, and I think they're gonna jump up and have some LCS potential to reach LCS, stuff like that. I think that might bias me a little bit against them and not get too excited about them or pay as much attention to them. But in general, I don't see them as as one of these finals contenders. I think they have vulnerabilities that can be attacked, and I think I think good planning and good prep will go a long way towards kind of knocking them out of that top 4 contention.
Yeah, I think the unique part about them is that they are the only team that truly plays the seed early game. Like the way they play and they draft, like they are. Every single pick ban they go into, it's like, all right, they're going to lose gracefully and have the scaling. That's just how they play, right? And I think that's like an interesting part of the team, and I think that they match up well against Dig because of that. Actually, because Dig, I've seen them trip over themselves quite a bit trying to snowball games with just sacking too many side lanes or like not finding the right fights. And if you do that against FlyQuest, like they're gonna have the scaling and they can punish. So that's an interesting matchup. But I think that it's like these teams in the lower bracket right now, it's almost like too hard of an ask to say like, oh, I think this team's gonna make it to the finals. I mean, you have to go so far into like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to play 6 matches just to get up against someone, like just to make it like to the finals. Whereas NoOrg, if they win this one and then win the next one, they're champs. Like that, it's such a tough ask for the lower bracket. So I don't want to call anyone down there like a tournament favorite. I think that FlyQuest is good. I think that Zeus versus Golden Guardians is going to be a really fun matchup this week.
Yeah.
But like I don't know how far those teams can go because like they have so far to go. I mean, you winning 6 best of 3s in a row, even if you're the best team in the lower bracket, that's a tough ask.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, somebody's got to do it, but
yeah. So we'll see how far they get. I think that the issue is that I think a C9 or EG, they're gonna like whoever loses there is gonna slot into the losers bracket. Then they have to play 4 matches. Those 2 teams are pretty tough. I think EGP can. They're a good team. I still think that like they have vulnerabilities across, like that other teams can punish, but yeah,
they're a little volatile too, right? Like just inherently with the style of some of their players and the way they win games is, they are making, more comebacks than you feel really comfortable with. So the fact that they could beat anybody in the lower bracket doesn't mean they will beat everybody in the lower bracket. I think they're a team that you definitely say that about. Now they're going to be somebody you have to be careful of, but you're never going to be confident this is going to work every game, right? That they can win, a couple BO3s, a bunch of BO5s. Like there's going to be somewhere where they have a run of 3 bad games in a row.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many games. I can't believe it starts up tomorrow. We're getting right back into it. All these games again. It's real good. Feels like it's been a while, but we're getting right back. Well, it hasn't been a while for LCS esports in general. This weekend has been ridiculous with all those games. But we're here for the proving grounds. We're not talking about all that stuff. And, actually, somewhat related to that, I wanted to know, Tim, how excited does this tournament make you as a spectator and as someone who is making content around the scene when compared to global leagues around the world? Because this weekend has been crazy. We got the LCK finals, LEC finals, LCS finals. LPL is wrapping up. They're just about done. And then Proving Grounds is starting up back again tomorrow.
Yeah.
What about this tournament has really like sparked that for you, and is it greater than the others?
I think the fact following something the whole way through, following something all the way back from January through to now, I think helps to be invested in what's going on and be really excited about, hey, this is where they've come from. This is how these players were playing at the start of the split. This is how they're playing now, getting to see that development, or anyone who's fallen off, can they bring it back? I think all of that helps to be really invested in it. I think I'm not going to lie, when I do watch, an LCK finals or an LEC finals and see the level of play they're at, that can be really exciting, partly from a novelty factor too, of not having followed those teams all the way through and come in and go, whoa, I didn't realize these guys were as good as they are, or that, that this team is playing at this level. That can be fun, really exciting as well. So like, it's not that I'm not interested in those, but I think just being invested in the scene, and also being able to see the entire NA vertical, right? Being able to draw these lines within an org, all the way from amateur for the ones that are there up to the LCS level. That makes it really fun to be invested in as well. So there's a little bit of fatigue that comes in with just the sheer volume of games that we've had in NA at with all these tier 1 and 2 tournaments and all of that. And then sometimes, there's very little break, like Mondays are the only days with no North American games for most of the year so far. There can be a little fatigue from that, and just like, a week off from watching these would be kind of nice to just catch up and maybe check in on what's going on in Korea or whatever it is. But being able to track this and draw those storylines all the way up, into the LCS potential of some of these players is really exciting, and I've really enjoyed being able to stay invested in that.
Yeah, I know for me, speaking personally, last year when I was getting really into the scouting ground circuit, and I was a big part of that, or at least that was a big part of me. I don't know how big I was influencing it, but that year like made me a 100 Thieves fan, because 100 Next, and like how well they did all of that, and then they promote all of that up to Academy, and then for the beginning and getting into this year, I became a Golden Guardians fan because they brought up Niles and Iconic, who I had just watched for an entire year, Smurf on People. And then now this year, I'm getting really excited for Evil Geniuses, and I'm becoming a fan of that org. So it's really, really cool just watching like careers grow, like from the ground up. It's been, I fully agree with you. Just like having that aspect of it is really, really exciting. And it is a lot of games. It's a lot of work to be invested in all of this, but it's been really, really fun.
I think for me, like the ability to be excited about, a top prospect kind of a thing, and seeing like, are they going to get an LCS shot and all that? I think that's a way that you can really gain a lot of deep fandom of a specific team. Like anybody who watched Fudge at all last year should be a massive C9 fan if they weren't already now. And I think even if they were a C9 fan at all last year, and then it should help deepen your C9 fandom to watch, we've got this player in Academy. Oh, and and whatever, the rule change of Oceanic players being domestic now helps with this. But regardless of the story of how it happens, if you got to be invested in Fudge as a prospect, and now you see him come up and have the trajectory he's had in LCS this year, that is just going to make you so much more of a C9 fan and lock in your loyalty for years to come, I think. And that's one of the reasons why I think LCS orgs should be promoting, not only promoting their Academy teams and trying to get their fans excited about it, but having players in Academy who are high potential LCS prospects to get into LCS and lock in that fandom. I think it's a much more fundamentally sound and strong way, if a little more risky, to get fans into your org, rather than signing free agents or importing players. Those have, I think, much more kind of shallow rooted ways to get fans excited. But this is the way to build really deep roots with your fans, is to develop players and promote them internally and have them succeed. That's how you get the fans locked in for years.
I've like been making the case too about the fact that like it feels like right now in the league, because there's no salary cap, there are too many teams that are trying to be the Yankees and not enough teams trying to be the Oakland A's, right? Like no one's trying, like until this year it felt like the only team that was actually trying to develop talent in amateur, it was 100 Thieves and then C9 historically. Those are the Yankees, right? So like it makes more sense now to have more teams like Dig come in and like, they have a third team, EG is a third team, and seeing success with that. And going on top of like, the grassroots stuff, I think it makes a lot of sense for those orgs. And if you have a team as good as EG, I mean, all of a sudden it's like, wow, you have arguably 2 academy teams that you have thanks to an amateur squad, and they're sitting pretty with all the talent they have. They're not going to have any lack of talent now for the next year, 2 years. Right. So yeah.
And I think we're gonna see which LCS orgs actually understand this concept and actually are willing to put in the work, because I think a lot of them are going to see the fruit that has been grown from Fudge's story with C9 and say, oh, we want that too. We're going to have a better academy team. Yep. They're going to see what EG are getting with this pipeline of players getting promoted and having all the success. Once they've had enough time to coach them, develop them up, they're going to see the success they've had, and hopefully for EG's sake, having some of those players end up in LCS and perform well and get this fan reward. But we're going to see which LCS orgs actually understand, well, we have to build the right players in the academy. We have to build the right staff, arguably even more importantly, to develop these players. We can't it's not just about having an amateur team, right? It's not just about putting your brand on a tier 3 kind of roster below your academy and the rest will all come. No, you have to make the right choices, and you have to have the right infrastructure in place to actually, it's a lot of hard work. You got to plant the seed, you got to till it, you got to weed around it, all that kind of stuff before that fruit comes later down the road, and it's a long process. So I mean, Fudge spent an entire year in academy and was a little bit of a cheater example because he went to Worlds from Oceanic teams. So I think some orgs are probably going to make the mistake of trying to jump on the bandwagon of having amateur teams, having academy teams, and hoping that the results will come without putting the right infrastructure around it. And others will do it right and they'll succeed. And hopefully more teams will see how they did it and put in the long, hard work of getting there as well.
Taking a bit of a reflective look at what this split has been, do you feel like the team strength and the level of, or the amount of prospects that we have, and how it does look like a lot of these teams are doing very well that are trying to go for the development route, or are being really competitive in the split? Do you think that this is going to happen again? Like, do you think this summer is going to have this high of a potential for the players and the turnover and the upsets, or amateur teams beating academy teams and things along that line? Or do you think that this was sort of an anomaly?
I think summer will be very different from spring. I'm not going to say it's going to be worse or necessarily better. I think it's going to be very different. And I think there are a few reasons for that. One is that it's a continuation from spring, right? Even if the rosters shuffle around a lot, we're not going to get a whole bunch of players that we didn't know existed suddenly showing up, because people who started paying attention to amateur at the start of this year, it was, all these players were new to them pretty much, or most of the players were. And now that novelty isn't there anymore because it's a continuation. Another reason is just it's going to be different because of the whole contracting situation. And, now you're under pressure to promote players, to the amount I understand, you've got to promote these players into academy before the academy roster lock, which I'm not sure what that timing is anymore. Like in the LCS, you get a roster lock, I think a couple weeks before playoffs usually. Now you can't add any more players to your active roster. If it's in similar timing with that, then it's maybe 2/3 of the way through what would have been the academy regular season originally. The whole tournament cycle makes that weird, right? But there is some date that you have to promote players before, and so because of that pressure, I think we're going to have a bunch of interruption. That either they're going to promote players amateur to academy in the mid-season break going into the summer split, and then it'll be a little more stable, or we're going to get some can be tenacity scenarios partway through the regular season you promote. And now the amateur team is kind of left scrambling to fill a gap. and they haven't had as much time playing together. Your strongest prospects just got promoted, so by definition, your amateur teams are probably going to be a little weaker. I think it's going to be very different because of all that. I think it'll still be very exciting, but I'm not sure we're going to get the same. I think most likely, I think we're going to get a little bit less amateur beating academy, and that's going to be a big factor in why. But I don't think that's going to make it any less exciting to watch.
I mean, like, that should be the case, right? Like, if we're going to have a tournament like this where everyone is in the same pool, amateur teams should not be going 4-2 the first week.
Yeah. That's an indictment of academy more than anything.
Yeah, it really is, right? It just shows that, like, some of the investments that were made in talent were maybe it wasn't the right one, or maybe that talent just didn't pan out. But if that's the case, then let's switch it up, right? Because if Zeus Gaming is scrimming 1 day a week and giving every academy team they play a run for their money, maybe we should get some of the people that are on Zeus Gaming and get them to scrim 5 times a week. What happens then, right? So I think that that's one of the reasons I think we're going to see a lot of turnover. And I'm pretty curious to see what things end up looking like going into next year, because I think that there are a lot of players in amateur that you can make very good cases for moving up to academy. And even in the case of like Viper Ando, like, I think you plug and play them in the right team in LCS and they're going to be okay. Like, they'll be just fine. So yeah, there's that too. And we're not even talking about the Sola Fide members as well.
Yeah.
They're
out there floating around, available.
If Sola Fide was in this tournament instead of Dig Mig, like, no offense to Dig Mig, but oh my God.
It'd be a stronger tournament, yeah.
This tournament would be nuts. Like, there could have easily been like 3 out of the like top 6 teams could be amateur Sola Fides in here.
Very good.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, Sola Fide. How could you do this? Anyway.
Something like this has never happened before.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Speaking of things that have happened before, how likely do you think it is that we get a Niles or Iconic like a promotion immediately off of this split?
Off of this split?
No.
Yeah.
Not mid split.
Summer is different from spring.
Yeah, not mid split.
Going into the start of the next year,
Viper?
Maybe. It's not the same. I think promoting if an LCS team picked up Viper, that wouldn't be at all the same to me as promoting Niles in for the start of the spring split.
I guess that's fair. I guess the one that you'd have to ask then is probably just Shiro then, because he'd be the first name on that list.
I think that's I think in terms of like paralleling the move, that it's a player coming out of amateur or collegiate amateur. Let's just consider them the same for the sake of this conversation. Yeah. And promoting them straight into LCS for the start of a split and not like a mid split change. I think that's the strongest example. I think he's the strongest prospect for that, and I think EG also are doing some kind of self-examination on their bot lane role at the LCS level. So if it is going to happen anywhere, that could happen. I think that's still a pretty big stretch to say that they would do it, because there would be so much risk in that move. You're basing your entire possibility of going to Worlds on an amateur player who's so young, so inexperienced. Like, it would definitely not be the safe call. That's for sure.
No. Yeah. I think the moves are going to be curious, but also I think we do have the rest of this tournament to go through. Like that. I don't think that like any result in this tournament is going to like change like what plans teams have like moving forward, unless a team like EGP like wins it all.
There's not a lot of time,
but
you have about a month and a half. Okay, let me shift it then. How likely do you think it is that it happens at the end of the year?
Man, there's so many variables in that question.
Probably pretty likely, because like maybe something happens, but also keep in mind that like budget cuts were part of the reason that Niles Iconic went straight to LCS with COVID. NBA teams are not going to have as many revenue issues this year.
I mean, or at least it won't change as much.
Yes.
You'd like to think it'd be back to normal. I don't know if it'd be back to normal, but it's not going to, like, the difference from 1 year and then a massive drop off isn't going to be like, it might stay dropped off, maybe not to the same extent, but it should be moving upwards at least. Yeah, I think if a team goes full Golden Guardians and like, hey, we're gonna try to just build full development roster at the LCS level, do they go all the way down to amateur for that? I mean, yeah, I think there is a chance of it because it's just so much easier to pick up talent at that level than it is to try to pick up academy players. I would have to look at the contract database and see who's actually going to be a free agent from the academy level, because I think that makes a big difference as well. Whether or not you have to buy a player out of academy, in which case you're not saving any budget anyways, or whether they actually have like a player like Fake God, who was an academy player, but now he's a free agent and you can actually just go out and try to sign him. And things went a little
and
weird.
Fake God was
we
ready.
don't need to get into, but
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to come up with examples of how they would do it. I think it could happen, but I think another factor that will play into it is how successful are Golden Guardians do we see that trajectory coming upwards, or do we, or does it kind of like it doesn't really work out, right? Like, and the whole year ends up feeling like kind of a failure. And if Golden Guardians find success with their approach or perceived success, then other teams might be willing to try it as well.
All right, I've got one last reflective topic for us on this split. I say it's not even over yet. We still have 2 weeks, but those entire sort of like content landscape around what this tournament has been, and all the other ones as well, the tier 1s and the tier 2s. I think it's fair to say that the three of us have done a lot for the external part of it. How do we feel about how the content has been shaped around the players, and how well do you think it has been or needs to be later in the summer and in the future as well, to make that the best that it could possibly be?
It's a good question. I think the volume of content out there, I would like to see more people contributing. I think the tone of the content that has been out has been pretty good. I think people have been fairly focused on player success stories and player potential, and building up positives. I think we've seen some people chiming in with like, here are the good things about amateur teams beating these academy teams and being successful. But I think there could be a lot more volume of coverage. I think when you look at traditional sports and you look at development leagues or talent pipelines and things like that, I think you get a lot more in terms of balance of looking at like here. I think it's partly because you have things like drafts that actually really mean something, and people get really excited going into those drafts. So who's my team going to draft? What draft pick do we have? Who are the top candidates? Is it a strong draft pool this year? Is it kind of weak? Are we going to trade our draft picks and get players off of that? And often lines up with free agency as well. So you get this whole thing going on. And I think we don't get that same level of kind of mainstream overall fan base kind of targeting of this kind of prospects storyline. And I also don't think we've had as much of a clear example of here are the players to get excited about, why they're worth getting excited about, the likelihood of, a number one draft pick succeeding in the league. We don't have that kind of body of evidence that this is worth being excited about. But I think that is a slow process that we're going to work up to. And the more we see players promote and succeed within their first 2 or 3 years, the more there will be reason to get excited about that. So, I think things are going the right direction. And I think there has been a move of content to cover this stuff, but there could still be a lot more done.
Yeah, I think that was like the one thing that was good about Scouting Grounds, that the draft was like trying to be hype. Like it's very easy to draft up or hype up a 1 weekend draft, right? Because I know that like as a traditional sports fan, I've sat here for the past 4 months complaining about the Bears quarterback situation and talking with all my friends about what's going to happen like with this draft. Like, do we take QB, right? As something that's like very exciting for fans. At least the draft like was kind of hype. I still think though that like this is better because we have way more footage of the people that are going into this instead of like 1 weekend, right? We just have a lot more to go off of now. And this tournament's been really fun. And I am interested before we've been here for an hour, so we're going to start wrapping things up here pretty soon. But I am interested, before we go, if everyone wants to kind of pitch in, what is one thing that you think, like, kind of like doing like a 90-50-10, like one thing you think is going to be 90% chance of happening, 50% chance of happening, 10% chance of happening as we get through the rest of this tournament. I know that this is kind of on the fly, but I do like these. And I am happy to offer.
This is regarding
give me time to think about it
and stuff.
Like what will happen in this tournament?
Yeah, what will happen in Proving Grounds for the rest of it. All right.
Okay.
So my 90%. I think that Evil Genius is top 4. They either need to win. Yes, they either need to win one best of 3 to top 4, or they lose and they go through a losers bracket where they will be facing most likely Barrage, or FlyQuest, and then they would face probably No Org on the flip side. So that'd be like their only tough matchup. They have to like win that top 4. I think there's I'm favoring them going into the C9. So I think there's a 90% chance that EGA top 4.
Okay.
I will hold off on my 50 as Smax can give a 90. We can do this.
Yeah.
Hotter takes as we go.
Let's see.
To like write them down as I think about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Cubby, you should have told me we were doing this.
I know. I like doing the 90-50 10s.
Okay.
I think it's fun. You get a safe take, an okay take, and then a spicy one.
I think there is a 90% chance. Do I think that? No, I don't think I do.
By the way, an amateur team right now is guaranteed the top 4.
That's true. I think there is a 90% chance that I don't think that either. Oh man, Cubby. I don't want to mess this up. My last 90-50-10 did not go well.
Mine went really well for you because we did this for UGP with who do we have on for that? Smax? It was a fun one.
It was a fun one.
We did 90-50-10s across the board.
Was that with Prismal?
Because
it was for UGP.
Yeah, it was for UGP. I'll have to
a while ago.
Do some research.
Yeah, we'll find it.
Yeah.
But mine was not good, so I'm not going to go back and look. Okay.
We did it with APA.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's a 90% chance that there are 2 amateur teams in top 4.
Ooh. So you're saying that EGP or No Org win their match when they get down to the losers bracket, or Barrage makes a run?
Barrage Zeus.
I think Barrage makes a run.
I think Barrage have a bracket where they can.
I'll open it to EGP as well. I think there's some chance that EGP also makes a
Barrage are going up against TSM Academy, and then they play the winner of Dig FlyQuest, which is not an unwinnable game for them. And then they'd have to beat C9 or EGA.
There's a possibility that Zeus does it too, because I mean it's amateur team.
Zeus do have the easier setup.
I think that one's the least likely, but I'm gonna stick with it. I think that one has a pretty high chance of being wrong. But
I think the Golden Guardians.
I'm going with it.
I think the Golden Guardians are the favored in that bot side, but Zeus do have an easier setup, just considering the fact that if they make it, then if Barrage wins 2 best of 3s, they play the loser of C9 EGA, which is a hard matchup. That's tough. Yeah.
All right, I'm sticking with it though.
All right, Tim.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm having real trouble coming up with a 90, so I'll just throw something out there. 90% chance that a player from the team that wins Proving Grounds is in LCS next year.
Ooh. I like that.
That's cool.
We can go back
throw that out there. I haven't thought through all the ramifications, but
go back and reference that. Well, like our tournament favorites, like EGA, JoJo would be 17, and that's probably, or Contracts could also is a good candidate to get picked up
next year. I'm saying 2022.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah.
No Org, Viper, Anda, C9. I think King Isles are great candidates to get promoted. Yeah, okay, I like that. That's a good take.
But it might not happen. There are teams that could win where I'd say, nah, none of these guys.
It may not. Also, just for fun, Kelsey is in the chat, and 90 an EG team wins. 50.
No bias.
Actually, okay, so her 50, I think it's a tad spicy, but I actually have a pretty good shot at this. And GGA make losers finals. 10
They've got a lot to do.
10 Dig A and IMTA win their next rounds. Yeah, I don't think Dig I think Dig and INT's tournament comes to an end here.
Well, that's why it's a 10% chance, Cubby.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would say 10, both of them win.
Yeah, I'd say 10 for each individually. Combined, I'd give that less than 10.
But yeah, neither of them is going to be a favorite in their series for sure. 100 Thieves should beat Immortals. And
if 100 Thieves actually show up with their brains on for the first 5 minutes, then they should be fun. Because they didn't have their brains on for the first 5 minutes against EG.
Okay, I have my 50. Are you ready?
Yeah. You go real quick because I'm still tossing over mine.
50. My 50% is that Fly Academy make it to the best of 5s.
Huh.
Okay, so they'd have to be.
Do you realize they play BO5s in losers quarters, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So they would have to win 2 best of 3s, and then they'd be there.
So you're giving them like pretty much a 50-50 shot of beating Barrage.
Yep.
In a sense.
I think that matchup is really close. That's what I'm.
That would be a fun series. Yeah, that would be a fun series. Okay.
I'll go.
Okay.
50% EGA and EGP play a best of 5 against each other. Because it could be next round. If they both win their BO3s, they could play next round, or they could end up. There are a whole bunch of BO5s that they might potentially match up in the losers.
Yeah,
nice. The Civil War.
Okay,
you got to flip a coin for it.
My 50% shot. So Kelsey has him playing in losers finals, which would technically be a top 4 finish
for both EG.
For Golden Guardians Academy.
Oh, I see.
Be a top 3 finish, no?
It would be a top 3. I will give them a 50% chance that they, not top 3, but top 4.
Okay.
I think that. I think that they're favored in their quadrant, and the loser is they probably have to face EGP, a team that they have lost to in the past but can beat now.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think that is hands down the easier quadrant now that we're left.
The bottom quadrant?
Okay, so the bottom quadrant, it's initially harder, but because EGP or NORG are dropping in, and most likely EGP, I think it's easier. Whereas C9 or EGA drop down to the top half, and once you get to that part, that gets really scary.
That is true.
It gets a bit scary. Okay. Then the 10%. So now we get to take some shots. What is our 10%?
I think 10% chance that an amateur team wins Proving Grounds.
Ooh.
Okay, I'd give NORG a higher chance than that.
Yeah,
I think 10's reasonable. Yeah,
I would put it a little higher than that, but I think that's completely fair.
This is my 10%.
Yeah, that's true. They don't call it Tim's 10% for nothing.
I've got the bracket up on this side. 10% chance that Barrage make top 4. Because they would have to beat, they'd have to get through EG or C9 in a best of 5, and I think that
and probably Fly.
And I have to get through Fly in a best of 3. That'll be my 10. Yeah. It's not likely. There's an outside chance.
Okay. I think that there is a 10% chance that Immortals Academy get to the best of 5 round.
Ooh. I think there's a 10% chance they make it to the next round.
Yeah, the top 4?
No, I think there's a 10% chance they just win their best of 3 against 100 Thieves.
And then, let alone having to beat most likely GGA.
GGA.
I'm gonna stick with that one. I think there's a 10% chance.
We don't get to do a 12% or an 8% here.
Out of curiosity, what do you see out of IMT that you like? It's got to be something you like.
It relies a lot on the teams that they're against not banning Oriana. But Wildcard didn't, so I think Pretty is just really, really good at that champ, and his Azir wasn't bad either. And if he can play like that kind of champion, where he's a control mage in the lane, and then later he can make a big team play, and he can be like a pseudo main engage for that team.
He did save his team from getting 2-0'd.
Exactly. He is very, very good at that, and I think he is the glue holding their mid game, late game fights together. I think Joey's also good. Joey's been one of the best supports, I think.
Joey played well in the first round.
Yeah, I really like Joey. I'm pretty high on Joey. So
I think
those are my two pieces.
Yeah, I think Pretty can definitely make a huge difference, especially given that we've seen I think 100 Thieves Academy are struggling to integrate Demonte, and his laning performances have not been good.
Yeah.
So I think that could give Pretty a bit of a free pass to kind of scale and carry. But I think as a team, I don't really have faith in Immortals Academy as a team to like I was saying earlier, to attack the top set of the map, to make Luger irrelevant, all these other things that you have to do to defeat 100 Thieves.
Right.
Yeah, Luger's a problem.
Yeah, we'll see.
Luger's
I think there's a slight chance that they make that miracle run and they go a lot farther than people would expect.
Interesting. Okay. I think that all the upsets for me kind of happen in this past round. I think that upsets are going to get less and less as we get into more and more games being played.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, BO5s by nature are less prone to upsets than BO3s are.
Yep.
For sure.
So we'll see. But I appreciate it. Thanks for entertaining me with a good old 90-50-10. I think those are always fun. Sweet. Tim, I think that's all the time that we have for today. But it was really fun having you on, man. And before
thank you so much.
we kind of have Smax do the sign off, where can we find you, and what shout outs do you want to give before we head on out?
Yeah, I think going to oracleselixir.com, my content, most of it ends up there that you can access, and you can kind of follow through to my Twitter at Tim Sevenhuysen and things like that. Do the Run It series is another thing you can find that I do for Travis Gafford's channel. So enjoy putting those together if you enjoy kind of LCS level content. So those would be the main things to kind of engage with what I'm putting out there.
Yes, if you want your prep to be as OP as mine for casts, go to oracleselixir.com.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I'm not kidding when I say whenever I am doing a cast for Proving Grounds, I have like 10
tabs are open.
Yeah.
I write everything down here because I don't like to look to the side when I'm on camera. But if I have any questions during the cast, and that's the angle.
Yep.
Players champion
it's
pool.
Really OP.
That's it. Yep.
Definitely check it out. Big vouch for Tim. Also, I'm gonna throw this one in there. Check out his podcast as well. The
published on the website. Yes.
Yeah, where he has shown his Proving Grounds pod host favoritism. Because Cubby's been on that show and I haven't.
Let's go.
I'm not bitter, I promise. But thank you so much for being on the show today, Tim. It's been very, very fun. I'm really glad we got the chance to talk to you. I know you were on the UGP show, but we didn't get to interact too much on that one. So it's been very fun talking to you.
Hopefully in future.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and if you're listening right now, thank you so much for getting to the end of the show. This has been episode 18 of the Proving Grounds pod. You can find us on all of our audio platforms. We got Twitch, YouTube, Anchor, Google, Spotify, and Apple. And you can follow us on Twitter at pgroundspod, where we post a ton of updates over there. And by a ton, I mean not actually that much, but enough to get by. We tease a little bit over there. So check us out on all of those, and thank you so much for tuning in. This has been it. Have a great night. See you.